Hello, everybody. Connected through my iPad today to see how this works. Hopefully, I don't have any connectivity issues. We're gonna see how this goes. Tonight is live with my sister, so I'm super excited because you guys will kind of get to see the difference between me doing lives and stuff with people that I've never met in person versus doing a live with my sister who I knew super.
Hi. Got it figured out.
It is still super hot in here, but
Trying to get
I'm hoping that connectivity won't be an issue. My phone still connected to a good network, I think. Awesome. So I will go ahead. Usually I have people introduce themselves, but I feel like I know you well enough to where I feel like I could introduce you. So, everybody that's watching, this is my little sister. We are almost 10 years apart, but we pretty much grew up together. We had a very tight relationship when it came to siblings. We didn't hang out with a lot of people outside of um, our family group. So my sisters and I were always very, very close. When it comes to her and I, we've had lots of fun. I'm going to let her share some of our childhood memories so that you guys can see a different side of me because as nice as I may seem, she's got some stories that she can tell people about me that make me not seem so nice. But she shares those with all of her friends all the time. So I'll let her share them here for you guys so that you can see a different side of me than what I normally do. Oh, I just went different color. But we can go ahead and get started. I kind of wanted to do this live because I think that it's a more vulnerable side of me that I don't really share with the world a lot. Dana and I have gone through a lot, and a lot of people see smiling faces when we're out and about in public and smiling faces when we post pictures online. But they don't always see the darker side of life and the things that we've gone through and had to overcome to be those smiling people that we are. Are you like going in and out? Is someone calling you? I can't hear you right now. I mean, I can keep going and explain stuff and hopefully you can figure out your volume thing. But uh, Dana and I have recently read a book called Toxic Parents, where we were kind of figuring out that a lot of things that happened to us in our childhood actually influenced the way that we viewed the world and the way that we kind of viewed ourselves. I think that when it comes to self-worth, a lot of that comes from your childhood. And I think that Dana and I both experienced a lot of things when it came to like the things that our grandparents told us, the thing that our dad told us, the things that our moms did. There we go.
there we go.
But I think that there's a lot of different things that we both experienced. And then, of course, being almost 10 years apart, I left for college and she was still very young and still living with my family at that time. So we've definitely gone through a lot together. When it comes to uh, her and I would say that when it comes to me being alive, Dana and my other sister Jen are definitely like two parts of my heart. And without one of them, like I would definitely just kind of lose life for sure. So it's definitely something that when it comes to the bonds that I have with them, when it comes to the importance of them in my life, like we don't always see eye to eye, but we're always there for each other. I know that when it comes to Any arguments we've ever had, we kind of, as soon as something came up that we needed each other, we had each other's back. We put our differences aside. And I think that that's something that I look for in relationships. That's something that I look for in friends. So I've been very blessed to have siblings in my life that I'm so close with. So we can kind of dive in. You can kind of tell your story a little bit when it comes to one thing that I really kind of wanted to touch on was the speech that you kind of gave at CNU when you were there, when it came to talking about family, when it came to talking about like who you became in college versus who you were before then. So if you wanted to kind of just talk about that a little bit.
There was definitely a big switch between who I was in high school to who I became in college. I was able to open up a lot and find out who I really was based on the people I was surrounding myself with. But the first thing you were talking about is the talk that I did. I went to Christopher Newport University in Virginia, but I just graduated this spring, and the talk that I did, it was called Speak CNU. That was the event that I was in, and the topic was on vulnerability and how you embrace it. So it was definitely the first time that I've ever stood in front of a large audience and been open in that regard. I don't do that very often, but I felt like it was very important for the people listening, especially some of my friends in the audience who had always known me as a super bubbly person. Always happy to see that side of me and be vulnerable with people, to know that the face that I usually put on isn't how it is most of the time. So it was a very eye-opening experience to hear other people's stories as well, but I sent it to him. Are you above me? Is that right? I sent it to you. But, yeah, and that was also a vulnerable moment to share that with him as well, because a lot of the stuff that I mentioned, I had only told the person that I was dating at the time, and they were the person that actually helped me open up in that regard, which I'm thankful for in the end. But it started with high school, how, like I said before, I was always happy. I had this facade that everybody never worried about me, just because whenever they saw me, I had a gigantic smile on my face. And then going into the whole dynamic of living in Charlottesville with my dad for 8 years alone, because Ben was off at school, then he left states, Jennifer was off at college, and then she lived at the farm, and I was basically alone, emotionally, physically, in all of the regards. And it was hard, but it was definitely something that I had to work through alone. But then when I got to college, that's one of the major reasons why it switched for me, is because I actually had people that were around me all the time that cared about me, that realized, like, she's not happy all the time, like, I need to check on her. So I highly rejected it at first. I still do most of the time, but it's just this whole dynamic of surrounding yourself with people that care about you and being able to show the good side and the bad side. So that's a lot of the stuff that I touched on, is just being able to realize that you are worth the love that people are willing to give you.
Yeah, most definitely. One thing that a lot of people, when it comes to my story, because it's LGBT content that I put out, like my coming out story, like when I came out, I was a freshman in college, and you were still living with our dad and stepmom. And so when it came to me coming out, you kind of got firsthand taste of their opinions of me. And a lot of people don't hear the things that their families say behind their back when they come out of the closet. And for you, you kind of got a different experience of what it was like for me to come out versus you having to live with the people who had a very negative opinion of the LGBT community. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's why I haven't come out yet. But yeah, that's definitely was a very rough time for me, because I was in fifth grade, fourth to fifth grade, like in between that time when our stepsister outed you to the family. So that was a horrible experience, seeing it from my side, because I was living with the people who negatively affected you, and I would do everything I could to be like, no, stop talking badly about him. But I was 10, So I couldn't really do much. Everybody would be upset. Everybody wouldn't mention your name. And it was just a disgusting, like, period of time because, like, I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to talk about you and be like, oh, Ben and I had this conversation. But then I would just automatically be shut down. And it wasn't like there was a conversation like, Dana, something's wrong with Ben. He's gay. But it was just like the complete lack of structure and the fact that they didn't even talk about it. They didn't even mention your name. And it was just a very awful time because I love you. I support you. When mama told me, like, oh, Ben's gay, I was like, no. And she was like, that means he likes boys. I'm like, I'm 10, I'm not stupid. So it was just a very interesting time because, like, I didn't see a problem with it. I hadn't been in enough, like, situations where I could have been negatively altered, like my perspective negatively altered, because I was in elementary school. Everybody still had cooties. Like, nobody really talked about that. And of course, our family doesn't talk. So I never had any negative, like, connotations with the LGBTQ community. So I was really confused. And during this entire time, I was having my girl Barbie's kiss and, like, all this other stuff, doing all of that. So then I was just confused and I was like, so? And they were like, oh, it's awful. But then I was like, no, like, he's a great person. I'm not gonna let that negatively affect the relationship that I had with him. But during that time period, it was very hard because you were gone for a long time. And yes, we have 100% reconnected since gotten older and confided a lot of stuff in you. And that's because I chose to keep that relationship going and I wanted to be there for you. I want you to be here for me. But it's a lot harder to do that when you're states away. But then again, I'm not in the same state as you now. But yeah, so it's just a very interesting mix to be able to look back and see the reasons why I am so terrified to come out to daddy. It's just because other people are like, oh, it won't be that bad. Like, you don't understand. Like, everybody has to come out one day. And I'm like, yes, I agree. I'm not going to stay in the closet forever. I have a girlfriend right now. And it's like, I'm not going to hide that. If that is brought to the forefront, I'm not going to deny it. Be like, no, that's gross. But I'm going to keep my personal life and that part of my identity closed off for now because my safety and my well-being is important to me and I know exactly what will happen. And not saying that that will happen now since daddy's kind of come around. Not really, but yeah. I mean, he says your name sometimes. But it's this, the whole thing is just like a whole mess. And I've saw it firsthand. And, like, people that I talk to who are within the LGBTQ community don't understand why I still haven't. And, like, even though they've gone through the process themselves, like, every situation is different. But I have been on the other side of the closed doors where they were talking about you. And that still hurts me because they were saying stuff about you. But that's before I'd even fully understood my sexual orientation. And it just completely stunted me for a while, like, all throughout high school.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any assumptions that you were part of the LGBT. I remember being very proud of you because in high school you were always so supportive and you stood up for anyone in the LGBT community. And I was just like, look at that. My little sister is doing amazing things. And I still remember, like, when you came out to me when I came to pick you up.
Yeah.
And I remember making jokes about, like, because you asked me if I could take you to Home Depot to get stuff for your dorm room. And I was like, okay, going to Home Depot. And then you're like, can you take me to get a haircut? And I'm like, oh, okay. And I just, like, made jokes because I knew that you were part of the Hypnotic Control dance team. And a lot of them were lesbians.
Yeah.
And so I was just making jokes, not even thinking that you would come out to me later. And for me, that was, like, honestly, like, after you came out and I knew how hard it would be for you to come out to our family, like, it honestly made me want to fight even harder for the LGBT community because now it wasn't just me that had to deal with the hate. Like, I knew that the hate was going to start trickling down and you would start facing that. And I mean, you and I have had lots of conversations with how do you deal with so much negativity in the world and not let it like mess up your positive outlook. And honestly, for me, like it is falling back on like my relationship with you, back to my friends that I love so much. And you do have to go out there and fight for equality, and you've got to fight all the ignorance out there in the world that the closed-minded people bring. But then you have to like turn around and remember who you're doing it for. And in those moments, you're like, those are the people, the progress we've made since I came out 12 years ago now.
Oh my congratulations.
I'm old. But I think that it makes it all worth it. But just like we were saying, like life isn't perfect. Life isn't rainbow and butterflies. The smiles that we put out for the world to see are smiles that we put on because, I mean, that's the life we want to live. We want to be happy. We want to live in a positive world, but that doesn't mean that we don't have our own struggles.
Yeah.
And I've honestly done life coaching. I've read thousands of books on how to make your life better. And I've been like, I was always waiting for that like aha moment of that is why I've been struggling with like depression. That's why I've been struggling with like not loving myself fully. And I think that the book that I read, the Toxic Parent book, like as soon as I read that book, my eyes were just like opened and I was like, oh my God, that is it. Like I have always sought my parents' approval and I've never gotten it. And when it comes to like accepting myself, like no matter what achievements I had, no matter how many followers I had, no matter how awesome it is to get paid to be a YouTuber, no matter how amazing it was to be top in the company, promoted, like I was still seeking the approval of our family. And you got a taste of it, like when it came to like, they tell us what they want us to do. And when we didn't do it, they made us feel like we were the worst pieces of crap on this planet. And growing up, like I always did feel like, oh, I let my family down because I didn't do what they said, but I still did it. I chose to go against what they said, but I always got attacked for it. The reason we were disconnected for so long was because they ran out of things to take away from me. So they decided to cut connections between us because they knew how important our relationship was. And that was hard. I remember you saving my name in your phone as like a girl name so that you could text me and so that daddy wouldn't know that you were still in communication with me. And like all of those types of things, like the manipulation that they used on us our entire childhood, that really affected me all the way into being an adult. And like I've seen like you, I've seen Jennifer dealing with those struggles still to this day. And it's horrible that that fear is still like in us on a regular basis. But after reading that book, I really had that moment where I was like, I found the problem. I know what was blocking me from accepting myself. And when it came to like reading that book, I was like, Dana has to read this. Dana just has to know what was blocking us, because I want to see you have just as much success. I want to see you like go out into the world and not doubt yourself, because I doubt myself all the time. Like no matter how many people tell me you're amazing, no matter how many compliments I get, like I still struggle on a daily basis with accepting myself. Like I was just having a FaceTime conversation before we started this where I don't feel like I can rest or take a second to myself because I feel like I'm not moving forward and I'm failing. And I think that had a lot to do with like, no matter what we did, straight A's, promotions at work, great pay, like bought my own car, like got to travel to different countries with my company because I did so well. Like I feel like I was constantly throwing that stuff out to our grandmother, our dad, hoping that they would be like, I'm proud of you. But we never get that. It's always, well, what, you couldn't have done better? Like, that's all you got? Oh, I mean, this is what you could have done. I mean, you went to school for this, not a doctor. You're not a lawyer. You're not this. And it's honestly taken a long time for me to say, this is what I'm doing. I am an activist in the LGBT community. I do life coaching. I am a corporate trainer that trains leadership seminars. Like, and that's okay because that's what I'm passionate about. And so many people don't realize that they say, oh, just cut them out. And it's it's not that easy because every single time I see a friend that has a good relationship with their family, like, it makes me wish that I had that. And I'm the type of person with a heart, and I'm like, maybe if I just try one more time. And it's always a slap in my face. But when I don't try, I feel like I'm a horrible person because, like, that's my family. Like, I love you and Jennifer so much, and of course our mom is amazing, but it's so hard to constantly be trying to get their approval and their love when more than likely it's never going to come. They say I love you and stuff like that to you in person, like in public places, because that's what's acceptable and that's what the image of our family is perfection. And I remember when I came out, I was told like I was ruining the family because I was ruining that perfect image of the Fulcher family. And I think that a lot of people struggle with those types of things. And I think that's something that people don't really see because I don't talk about those types of struggles on a regular basis. You and I do, because we understand that. We have gone through those experiences together. And it's so like tiring to explain it to people and then talk to you as if there's a simple fix. They're like, oh, just cut them out. Oh, just be happy. And I'm like, it's not simple. I've been dealing with it for 32 years of my life. If it was simple, I would have done it a long time ago. I've tried doing the cutting people out of my life. They still find ways to manipulate and cause problems. It's not simple. And when it comes to relationships, it's come up every single time. Like, I love introducing people that I'm dating to you and Jennifer, and most people really love our mom. But boyfriends that I've introduced to my dad, like, he's literally pretended they weren't in the room. Like, they put their hand out to like introduce themselves, and he would walk past them like they weren't there. And that's hard. And it does put strain on your relationship because most LGBT people are looking for acceptance. And why would you, even if you're dating a really great person, if their family's horrible, that's really a toxic like future for you.
Yeah.
And so how have you kind of dealt with all of those types of things as well?
Well, I want to go back to the book for a second, and then I can go from there. I feel that it is so embedded in us. Like, that's what the book was saying. Like, before you go to school, the only social group that you have is your family. That is where you learn right and wrong. That's where you learn like your values, your core values. And when you get older, you can change those when you're surrounded by others. But during that crucial period of your life, those are technically the only people that you have to look up to. And I feel like our role models are very, very flawed. So I feel that like whenever anybody like mentions self-worth, like, you should love yourself, you should love how you look, you should love everything that you're doing, you should be proud of yourself, that is an automatic just like red X right in front of it, because I was told not to praise myself. I was told not to love myself. I was not good enough based on the requirements that were set in front of me. I could never check every single one of those boxes. Being myself, I would have to bend over backwards to be able to fit those. And I did for the longest time when I was living there to make them happy. I put their happiness before my own just so that I would feel safe in that home. So whenever anybody like mentions that and they're just like, oh, cut him out, tell them, F them. It's like, no, like you do not understand the type of relationships that I have made with them based on the trauma that I went through as a kid. Like, I'm not personally excited to go through it. Like, it's obviously not something that I want to do, but for right now, like, it has to do because like I don't have any other option because I just got out of college. I moved. I got a job straight out of college and I was proud of that. Super pumped. It's not a well-paying job, absolutely not, because I'm an AmeriCorps member, but I'm serving the youth in my community that I'm living in. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get in the community and do that. Super excited. I was so happy about it. I found the job, I applied, had a bunch of online interviews, and then when I got the job, the first person I called was my dad. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have such great news. I'm so excited. And he was like, that's a bad area. And then there was like a 10, 15-second pause, full 10 to 15-second pause. And then he changed the topic. And it's like, it just drains you because just like you were saying before, like I have worked so hard to do something that I want to do. And I'm putting that effort in because through whatever I was given when I was younger, I got that drive to do that from him, which I'm thankful for. But is it healthy? Absolutely not. But when I finally achieved something that I wanted to do and it didn't meet his expectation, automatically everything crumbled. I didn't care about the job anymore. I didn't want to move. Like, I didn't care. It's building back up now that I'm on my own and I'm doing that, and I'm thankful for that. But it's just the whole dynamic of trying to please them, even when you know you can't. But you still try because you want to. You want to have that relationship because you see other people having it, and it's not fair. But that's the life that we were given, and I have you, and I'm very thankful for you because when I have problems with that, when I have problems getting my apartment, or like I'm sabotaged by the people that are supposed to love and care about me, I still have you, and I know that you'll be there for me. So it's a very good thing, and I love you. But just like everything from the book, they specifically said, like at the last couple of chapters that I was reading, they stated like, oh, like here's all the things you can do. Like if you're ready to confront them, here are the steps that you can do to prepare yourself to do all this. But then it says, if you don't feel comfortable doing this, this, and this, you're not ready to confront them yet. And that was a big step for me because I was like, I want to do it. I'm strong. I can do whatever I want. I can do this. And then I was like, do you feel comfortable doing this? Do you feel comfortable with them being able to use this against you and do this? And it's like, no, I'm not okay with that. So it's like, you need to take more time to work on yourself before you can do that. And that was an eye-opening thing because it was very evident that parental influences can be very negative if they are not the right, like, nurturing type of relationship. And a lot aren't. There were a whole bunch of different like issues that were brought up that different parents can have. But there was a checklist at the beginning, first chapter, because I was listening to it on audiobook, so I didn't have it in front of me. But it was like, name how many of these checklists like parents can do. And then I was like, holy crap. And I was like, my grandparent.
Mark, I actually see your comments there where you said, but didn't you know that would be the outcome of telling him, tell someone like your brother? So that comment there, the problem with that is our family knows how to manipulate our thought process. They've done it to us our entire life, and a lot of times they start to come around. So we think that, oh, look, my grandmother is finally being supportive of me. Oh, look, my dad finally asked me about my job. Oh, look, we're finally able to have a conversation about life and it's not going horribly. And we start to get hope again that something good is going to come of it. And then we once again do something that is not in their plan for us. And as adults, I've started to realize, like, I've just recently told Dana, like, anytime, like, you could possibly remove the power away from them, do it. Don't ever put your future in the hands of them. So it's like, oh, do they need to sign a document? Find someone else to sign that document. Oh, do they need to drive you somewhere? Make sure that someone else is going to be driving you somewhere. Always have kind of, exactly, gaslighting. It's something that we've dealt with our entire lives. So sometimes we don't even notice. And we were taught to respect our family. We were taught to respect people who are older than us. We are taught to be these like obedient people. And I think that when it comes to our caring nature, we just have to be a lot more aware that there are people out there that are going to take full advantage of that. I was telling Dana, I feel like our family, minus our mom, she's got different things that have affected us in a positive and a negative way. But when it comes to like my dad and my grandmother, like I felt like they literally read this Toxic Parent book as a handbook on how to manipulate and control your grandchildren and children. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like this book is literally like written about my life. It's like someone's been observing me and like wrote chapters specifically about me. So when it comes to that type of stuff, yes, it's gotten better when I've realized that that's a problem. I think you have to realize it's a problem, and it's when you realize that it's a method of manipulation that they can use against you when you're not doing something. Like there was a chapter where it was talking about your parents don't want to see you do better than them. So when they see you starting to gain success, when my dad saw me starting my own business, when he saw me like getting a job that I was really excited about, like I want to tell my family about it, and he went behind my back to find ways to mess that up, or like Dana was saying, talk to you about it in a way that makes you not even excited about it anymore. So yes, after I started realizing that that's the type of reaction I was going to get from him, I did stop telling him. Like I've had conversations with other people in my family and they're like, have you told your dad? And I'm like, no, I'm not, because I'm happy about this and I'm super excited about this. I'm not going to have it ruined by him. So it's definitely something that I've learned. I think Dana's learning it more now. I think Jennifer's also getting quite the dosage of it here recently. But like, thankfully, we've had each other through it all. We came from a broken home where our parents got divorced when we were a very young age. I was 13, so Dana was 3. So we dealt with our parents being immature, using us as ways to manipulate each other. And it almost seems like they didn't even care about us and how it was affecting us. It was more, how can I hurt this person by not letting them see my kids? Or how can I hurt this person by not giving them money? And at the end of the day, it was just hurting us. And as kids, you don't realize that it's not your fault. When you're an adult, you're like, that wasn't my fault. And of course, there's lots of other things going on when it came to our relationship with our family and the dynamics. Our family does have money. So money is definitely something that's been held over our heads. They'll promise us college. They'll promise us things that it sounds really appealing. It got to the point where I didn't allow them to pay for anything for me because it was always a power of manipulating me. It's like, oh, I paid for your car. Oh, I paid for your college. You have to do everything that I do, or everything I want you to do. And that's really hard to kind of grow up with and break away from that.
It's transactional. It's not transformational in the slightest. When it's first presented, you're like, oh my gosh, they care about me. Oh, they love me. It's fantastic. But until you start to go down a little bit through a trail that they're not ready for, they tug you back. And they're like, well, we did this for you. That means you have to do it our way. So it's just a very different aspect. And like, yes, we are thankful that we have been able to have the privilege of money, and I'm so thankful that I was able to go to college and graduate. But that's the whole reason why we're having this conversation, is that I couldn't have finished college if I came out to my father. That is one of the reasons why I've waited this long to do it, because when he found out that Ben was gay, he stopped paying and held debt over his head for a very long time. And it's like, I've seen that firsthand very closely and see how negatively that affected you. And Ben, you're amazing for being able to overcome that. And that's amazing that you were able to do that. But like, the fact that I've seen how bad it can get, and like, some people say it's selfish for me to not tell my family, but it's self-preservation. I am not happy about having to do it. I would love to just be able to come out and be like, hey, here's who I am. Deal with it. If you don't accept me, that's fine, but I'm not going to change for you. And I want to do that one day. But right now, when I'm still within the binds of having my financial security, my emotional stability, just like everything could be ripped from me like it was him. And I know exactly what that could look like. And I do not want to take that chance if there's any way that I can still receive their help throughout this time period when I'm still getting on my feet and still learning how to be a full adult, get my own job, get my own place. And I did. I did that on my own, but they were standing behind me, sort of.
And I see Alex's comment where it says, you guys seem to have turned out great, or amazing. A lot of people say that. We've had a lot of people say, like, and ask us, like, how did you guys turn out the way that you did with growing? Because a lot of people see our family at first as the perfect image they want to project to the world. And then the longer people are in our lives, they see, like, we'll be at the top of our games, doing amazing things, super happy. And then our family will just show up at our house and do something that will just knock us completely down. I know that here recently, my dad kind of threw me down because I hung out with friends, because during the pandemic, you're not supposed to do that. And he just pretty much told me I was worthless, and I didn't care about anybody's health or well-being because I chose to be around friends during a pandemic. And that hit hard because my friends were around me that at that time, because I was going through really, really intense depression. And that's, I think, one of our silent things that a lot of people don't know about you and I is the mental health aspect of things. Like, these smiles that we put on cover the tears behind our eyes that we don't show the world a lot of times. And I think that a lot of people think that we are really put together, but a lot of times we are struggling really hard alone.
Yeah.
And you and I have definitely been there for each other and talked about those moments of, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm done. Like, this isn't worth it. Like, this is too hard. Like, every single time we build ourselves up, there's a family member that just comes, knocks it back down. And I think that when it came to, like, you having to hide who you are right now, I think that does add a lot of anxiety to your life. I know that Jennifer, because she still does rely on our dad for some things, she doesn't feel like she can disagree at all. She can't stand up for herself because she relies on him for something that he can take away if she does stand up for herself. And she just got a taste of that. She stood up for herself against our grandmother, and I was proud of her. But she got the full force of what it's like to stand up to your family. And even when you try to do stuff on your own, it's in the back of your mind, like, don't get too used to this. Don't get too happy. Don't think that this is going to stay forever, because we're so used to that happiness being destroyed when we least expect it, to where now it's something that we kind of just expect. And I think that does put a huge strain on our mental health. And 2020 threw everything on top of things that we were already trying to get on top of. And I think that when it comes to that type of stuff, like, I don't share it a lot. I've done videos. You and I did a video on my YouTube channel about mental health and the things that we struggle with. And I think that people don't realize that that's a struggle that you have even when you're smiling for the world to see.
Yeah, especially then. The one thing that you said, it sparked a light bulb in my head, and you were talking about how everybody, when they first meet our family, they're like, oh, you're a perfect family. Oh, you're great. But I feel like that's the reason why we smile all the time, is because it's embedded within us to not show our pain. We couldn't do it when we were younger and growing up, and when we did, we were shunned by it and forced back into that little hole to hide. So I feel like that's the part where everybody's like, oh, you're so happy all the time. It's like, I have to be, because if I'm not happy, I'm not fulfilling the role of the perfect child. So I must do that. And that goes into friendships and relationships too. And I know that we've both had problems with that too. It's like everybody's like, oh, you're so great. Oh, you're smiling all the time. But in reality, there are so many things under the surface that are happening that we hide from people. I don't get super close to a lot of people, and that's why, because it is a weakness to be sad. It is a weakness to be vulnerable. And I pointed that out when I had my talk at CNU a couple of years ago. That is ingrained within me. That's not just a simple thing that I can get over. That is what I was taught when I was younger. That is what I observed, and that is what I do. So it's just very hard to look at other people and be like, oh, just like talk about your emotions. It's easy. Don't close out. Like, don't shut down. And it's like, that is the only protective mechanism that I have had for my entire life, because I was forced to use it. And I understand that it's not the healthiest, and I understand that it does not progress relationships. But when that happens, like, that is the end all be all. Like, I'm stuck in it, and it takes a lot to drag me back out. And that's when healthy friendships, relationships, having you is helpful, because when I'm in that dark place, when I'm put in there by other people or myself, shutting myself down, like, I know that I have people to reach out to. And it's even hard to do that then, because we're supposed to be strong and independent and rely on ourselves and not be weak. So it's just a very hard dynamic to try to fulfill when everybody sees you happy, and then when they see you unhappy, they're like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? It's like, I decided not to fake a smile today, like, I'm sorry. And then they're just like, oh my gosh, and then they worry about you, and I hate people worrying about me.
I think that when I started opening up and being vulnerable with the world about all my problems that I deal with on a regular basis, it was to help other people. I wanted other people to know that I struggled with lots of things, whether it was loving myself for the way that I looked, loving myself for being gay, loving myself for being a gay Christian, loving myself for being someone who hasn't succeeded at everything that I've tried. And Mark said there's strength and weakness. I've definitely learned that being vulnerable and sharing my downfalls has made me a stronger person, and it has brought amazing people into my life. Like, the people that I've done lives with on here have brought amazing things into my life. The friends that I have in my life right now, they have brought amazing experiences into my life that I wasn't expecting. And I've definitely learned that sharing that with the world has helped me just as much as it has helped other people who are struggling with similar things. So I think that it's really important to see the strength in vulnerability. We were taught our entire lives not to show that. And we were taught that that made us look not perfect. We were taught that when we showed our vulnerabilities, when we shared our flaws, that we made our family look bad. We didn't just disgrace ourselves, we disgraced our entire family for doing that. And it got to a point where I was like, I don't care. Like, you guys are really horrible people and you deserve to look bad. I'm going to be my most authentic self, and I'm going to have people love me for every part of me, because when I was pretending to be someone that I wasn't, when I did have a hard time, the friends that I had that loved me for the perfect image that I portrayed to the world, those people disappeared as soon as, like, I needed help the most.
Yep.
And it was like, oh my God, you're not perfect. I can't be friends with you. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, so when I needed friends the most, I had nobody. So it took me opening up and being vulnerable and really creating friendships that mattered, that saw me as a flawed individual, that saw me as imperfect. And when times got rough, those were the people that showed up to my birthday this year, because August was horrible and I really needed friends. And my real friends did show up. And they are the ones that message me on a regular basis on social media. And they are the ones that tell me I love you. And when you share everything with someone and they say I love you feel it. Like, it's not something that you doubt. And when it comes to like my friends that I have in my life now, like Promise, who has seen me from a very, very young age, she saw me in the immature stages of my life where I didn't love myself at all. And she's now in my life now where acceptance and love is something that I can actually say I feel for myself. And when it comes to those types of friendships, I cherish that. And that's what I'm constantly trying to teach the world is, hey, learn from my life, learn from the things that I've gone through, because I feel like a lot of people see my life and think that it's perfect. And when I tell them, hey, just keep your head up, keep going, stay positive, surround yourself with people that love you for who you are, like that advice is not just like shallow advice that I give because I read it in a book somewhere. Like that advice is advice I'm giving because that's how I saved myself. Like that's how I got out of that dark, dark place that my family put us in. And like that's where I'm constantly trying to pull you and my other sister, and I mean our mom as well. Like I think it's important that people listen to this advice because it's not coming from someone who's had a perfect life. It's coming from someone who has gone to a very dark place and pulled myself back from. So I wanted to have this talk because I want people to see that, like, when it comes to being vulnerable, when it comes to really finding ways to love yourself, it's important. Like, it will save your life. Like, I've gotten to the point where I was just like, it's not worth it anymore. And like when you told me that you got to that part, like in your life, like it scared me to death. Like, because thinking about moving forward, like with you not here, like I would die. Like I would be a hollow like vessel walking around this world if you weren't here. And stuff like that, like I when I see other people suffering, I'm like, oh my God, I have to help. Like I have to do whatever I can to make sure that they are not feeling the way that I felt in those dark times, because those moments were scary because I didn't control my thoughts. And it's definitely a scary place to be in, to see someone you love so much right there on that edge. Like you want to do whatever you can to save them, but it's hard to do that. Like you have to like understand like what you're doing, and you have to have an understanding of the person you're talking to, because you don't want to be the person that pushes them off that edge.
We love you too, Jennifer.
Yeah, our other sister just commented.
We love. The first step is talking about it, though. I feel like that's a step that a lot of people don't realize they're strong enough to take. You didn't know I was going through anything she commented again, before I told you. I held that from people because I was ashamed that I was sad. I was ashamed that I didn't want to live anymore, because who is fully like proud of that? That's just something that you hide from people. Mental health and mental illness has been something that you keep in the dark because that's how it's always been. It's definitely gotten a lot better recently with people like coming out and talking about it, but that was one thing that I never wanted to admit to you because I cared about you. I loved you. I don't want you to worry about me in that regard, but I was at a place where living was not something that I wanted to do. And I swallowed my pride and was like, hey, I need help. I need your help. And that was a very hard thing to do because I looked up to you. I looked up to Jennifer, and y'all were the only ones I had in that point. And I was so close. And then the only thing that stopped me was like them. Like, I can't leave them. And like, that is a hard thing to realize, is just like, you have to talk. Like, you have to tell somebody about it. And like, there are points where I didn't want to, but I did. And I'm very glad that I did. And I'm glad that you told me and are having this talk with open people, because like, it's an important thing to discuss. And even though I don't know many of these people on here, it's like, need help, like reach out. Like, for people that have been through something like that, like, I'm always willing to like lend out a helping hand.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely important to talk about it. Social media is not always the best place. I've said that before on lives. Like, we all have people in our lives that we can reach out to that are going to respond in a positive way. And if you don't, then social media would be great. Find people like me, find people like my sister, find people like my friends that I've done lives with, and reach out to us, because we are willing to talk about stuff like this, and we understand that it's hard. Like, I've talked to many, many, many people on Instagram and YouTube that have been struggling with certain things, and it's never a wasted moment. Granted, sometimes I'm busy, but it's important to reach out. It's important to be vulnerable. And the reason I say don't post it on social media, try personal private messages first, is because sometimes there are trolls out there. There are people out there that think this is a joke and think it's funny to comment hateful things back when you are reaching out for help. And it's not the best. Being on YouTube, being on Instagram, like, I get it all the time. I go through so many negative messages on a regular basis. And as far as I know, Mark, my mom watches our videos. That's about it. um, so, I mean, if they watch it, then God, they should be embarrassed that we're having this conversation because of the way that they treated us as children and the way that they treat us as adults. Um, of course, we're tarnishing their perfect brand that they've created. But I think that there's a lot of people out there that destroy someone's life because they're trying to force them to be perfect, which is impossible. So if they do see this, good. I'm not going to be upset about it. Dana just came out. So but I think that when it comes to secrets, when it comes to having to keep things from people, that is giving them the power over you. I've learned that since I've come out, since they don't pay for anything for me, like, they don't have as much power over me as they do you and Jennifer. Like, there's a lot less power that they've got over me, and I've noticed that because they can't take anything away. But when it comes to like our happiness, like, I know that I am surrounded by friends that if something happened to me and I needed their support, they would be there because they love me. I feel like our dad and our grandmother, when it comes to their relationships with people around them, it's more they've found ways to manipulate people. And I would never want to be in a situation where I have to manipulate the people around me to get them to help me when I need someone. And I think that you've surrounded yourself with amazing people as well. Like, I've met a lot of your friends, and you've found people to be open with. And it might be a few, it might not be tons of people, but it's better to have those few good friends that are there for you no matter what than be surrounded by tons of people who are only there because you're successful or who are only there because you're smiling. I think it's important. So, how old are you?
I'm 22.
I'm 32. So,
I turned 23 in December. So,
but yeah, I think that it's important to have these relationships, and I'm extremely grateful that I've got a relationship with you and Jennifer. Like I said, we've had our differences, we've had our struggles, but the three of us have always been each other's like rock through it all. Like our granddad was a huge supportive character in our lives, and when we lost him, I think that all three of our lives started going down a downward spiral. I think that we were all doing it separately. I wasn't in Virginia. You and Jennifer was in college. You were living with our dad. So we were all very alone going through that. And I think that when we finally reunited and found each other again, I think our strength definitely multiplied. We realized that when it comes to battling this world, it was a lot easier when all three of us were doing it together. But it's definitely important to kind of surround yourself with people like that. So for people who don't have siblings like I do, I think that finding friends that can be there for you. I've honestly had friends in every state that I've lived in that I've kind of formed relationships with, where they're like, this is my West Virginia sisters, this is my Florida sisters, this is my Illinois sisters, this is my Maryland sisters. They were people that really became that physical presence in my life, that they were the hugs, they were the movie watching, they were the let's just eat lots of ice cream and talk about our feelings, because I didn't have you guys there beside me all the time. But I think that when it comes to the success that I've had, when it comes to what I'm able to do, when it comes to making positive change in the world, like, you play a huge role in that, because like, you know me better than most. Like, I would say between you and Jennifer, like, you know the full me that the world doesn't see. You've seen the selfish side of me. You've seen the side of me that has fought for my life. You've seen the side of me that has cried for days on end. You've seen the happiest sides of me. Like,
Is this
with
the where I tell all the stories of you being mean to me?
go for it. Let them know. Yeah, I mean, I think siblings, when we're younger, like, that's kind of like, we had a 10-year difference. So like, growing up, a lot of times our mom and they would have adult things to do, and they're like, okay, now you have to take your little sister with you. And we weren't always nice. We picked on her a lot. There's lots of moments that I definitely played the role of the big brother that picked on his little sister. But I mean, I think I've come a long way since then.
You have. Both. I've come a long way. I am big now. You can.
Yeah, Dana is definitely probably stronger than I am. So I don't pick on her anymore. I'm still taller than she is, but all the dancing she's done has definitely given her a lot more muscle and strength than I have.
Yeah, definitely come a long way.
But I feel like the purpose of this video was just so people could kind of see a different side. I think that you are probably one of my most vulnerable sides when it comes to who I am and what I'm willing to share with the world. I'm definitely very protective of you.
Yeah.
I would probably become a murderer if I have to, if it came to someone hurting you. But it's definitely something, I mean, and Dana's super smart too. She might be 10 years younger than I am, but when I was going through a breakup that was really hard, like, Dana's advice is on point. Like, she went to college for psychology, just like my other sister as well. So when it comes to people who can give advice, like, the three of us together, I think it was almost like us going out into the world trying to find the solution for why we were so messed up.
Yeah.
But we're also using that knowledge to help other people. So I think that all three of us have always been the type of people that we would give our own life to help other people. Like, that's, I think, all of us. Jennifer more so along the lines of Hayden now, because she she's a mom. We don't really experience that. We get to be uncle and aunt, but I think that when it comes to all of that, like, it's really important that we are all there for each other.
90%.
Racing stories coming. Who starts?
Me. No, just
I feel like I took the role of the big brother, the fatherly figure, of taking care of my sisters growing up. I think that I've always kind of held that role. I think that it's really important. Like, if I go through life, I always think, like, would my sisters look up to me? Would my sisters be proud of this choice that I've made? So I think that when it comes to embracing, like, my goals and stuff in life, it's definitely being a role model to my sisters who are both younger than I am. I think that that's definitely always been something that's gone through my head. My family did instill that. I think that was a good thing to have instilled, to always think of, hey, like, would my sisters be proud of me if I did this? And when I came out, I honestly, it was like, I have to be my true self. I would want my sisters to know that I want them to be their truest selves. I want them to be the happiest selves they can be. So when I came out, I thought about that. And, like, I think you guys were more upset with me for keeping it a secret
we knew.
telling you.
No.
Then because that had been brought up before and I denied it, and that was like me lying to your face, because, like you said, you kind of knew. Whether it's the things that you found that made you realize, or the different, like, mannerisms and things that I did. I mean, I was very lucky to have my sisters be very supportive right from the beginning. All my relationships thrived when it came to adding my sisters to the mix. So I was definitely very lucky in that aspect, for sure. And now it's just Dana's turn.
What? I turned what? Live.
That's very true. I'm the type of person that I always try to find the positives in things, and there's a lot of things that my dad and my grandmother taught us. Whether it was, I don't think that we use the power of manipulation. I don't think, like, I could never manipulate people. I don't like that. I feel like that's a horrible thing. But from that, I've learned when I am being manipulated. And because of that, I've also learned that I don't want to be surrounded by people who are only around me until I'm of no use to them. I think there's a lot of positive that came from living through this stuff. I think that because of the pain that we lived through, we're also able to use that to help others that are experiencing it, because not everybody has two loving sisters that you can fall back on. Sometimes you might need to fall back on me as a person, and that's okay. Like, we were built strong, and thankfully we had the three of us growing up to kind of fall back on and stay strong. I think it's been something that we've done for a long time. When we were very young, when at first we went through the divorce, we were all on different levels of understanding that, but we were always there for each other. You came to, like, the Young Life events that we went to, even though your age group wasn't that part. But when it came to, like, my friends, I always wanted to make sure that my friends, if you were in town, that you were involved with it. And I mean, this weekend you're going to get to see some people from my life, so that's exciting. So, but yeah, I see that we've hit 6 o'clock. I feel like this was an awesome discussion. I appreciate you coming on and talking about it on a live in front of people that you don't know.
Yeah. Look at that ability.
I feel like you've got the power to do amazing things. Like, as much as you look up to me for doing what I do, like, I know that you have been doing the same thing. Like, I was super impressed with your senior performance that I got to see, where you talked about mental health and the struggles that you've been through. Like, sharing it with the world definitely makes you feel like less alone, and you being brave enough to share that with the world is literally opening the door for hundreds of other people to know that it's okay not to be okay, and sharing it is not bad, and you don't become any less of a person, and you've got to keep sharing it. Don't make the decision of taking your life before like really putting thought into who else is out there. This world is full of amazing, beautiful people that care about you, and don't let yourself get caught up in the mindset of people don't care, because there's tons of people out there that do. So, I mean, you're working with kids now, so you get to do exactly what you've always wanted to do, and helping those people. I'm sure you're going to change hundreds of lives. They might not say it to your face. I always tell people we change people's lives just by doing good things in the world. They don't necessarily have to say, "Hi, you changed my life." Just the things that you're doing right now at 22, I wish that I was doing. I'm glad that you've started so young, because that just means by the time you get to 32, you're going to be even more phenomenal than what I'm doing right now. And you're going to be able to do things, hopefully, for the rest of your life that make positive change in the world. Love that book. I read it at 29, so.
I was like, I know I have it. It's right in my drawer. Got like partially through, and then I got really anxious and had to stop. But I will come back to it.
Yeah, that book I found when I was 29, and it's talking about how the 20s is your defining decade, and I'm like, oh, I've got 1 year to define it myself. But got it to you at a good age, so you were 21 when I gave that to you, so perfect age to learn about the defining year of your, or decade of your life.
Yeah.
But I guess we can go ahead and start wrapping this up. I know that you've got things that you're going to do after the call. I've got my hour drive home. I will see you this weekend.
Okay.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. I'll take my cat.
Yeah, you can have your loud, screaming, screeching animal that screams all night long.
I do apologize.
I think like singing or searching for you. I think he's just screaming your name all through the hours of the night.
I'm sorry.
And my cat will be glad that he's gone, because my cat doesn't like having him, because your cat is definitely the more dominant.
Yeah.
My cat's just like, I just want to live my life being a fat cat.
Yeah. Thank you. I love you. And thank you, everybody, for staying here for such a long time listening.
I love you too. And I will see you soon.
Okay. This weekend. 2 days. Okay. Bye, Ben.
Bye.